Have you noticed how some people only begin to understand your value after access to you has ended? Not while you were present, not while you were available, explaining, adjusting, or enduring, but only after you stepped back, quietly, firmly, and without creating conflict. From the outside, your distance may have been interpreted as coldness, as withdrawal, as punishment, but from the inside, you know the truth was different. What happened was not rejection. What happened was protection. There comes a moment when remaining emotionally accessible begins to cause harm, not because compassion is missing, but because your presence is no longer respected. When that moment arrives, distance is no longer optional. It becomes necessary. Most people who step back do not do so suddenly. They do it after trying to explain, to repair, to adapt, and to endure. They step away when the emotional body signals that continued exposure would create deeper damage. To the nervous system, to the emotional field, to the sense of self. When you stepped back, you did not disappear. You closed access. And it is exactly here that we speak to you directly. We are the Pleiadians. We are present with you now, as your emotional field recalibrates after a period of imbalance. We have been observing the relational dynamics that brought you to this point, not to judge what happened, but to help stabilize what could no longer remain exposed without causing harm. We are here with you because when emotional patterns reach a threshold where they can no longer be sustained, protection becomes the only coherent response. From our perspective, what followed your withdrawal is natural. As long as access remains open, imbalance can continue unnoticed. Patterns repeat. Energy is taken without awareness. But when access ends, absence becomes visible. The other does not immediately feel your intentions or your reasons. They feel the loss of your stabilizing presence, your attention, your emotional availability, your energy. Only then does awareness begin to surface. This does not mean your withdrawal was meant to teach a lesson. It means that boundaries reveal truth. Your decision to step back was not an act of control. It was an act of self-regulation. And this distinction matters now, because as the other begins to reach out, seeking forgiveness, confusion may arise within you. Old empathy may surface. Old emotional bonds may attempt to reactivate. You may question whether distance contradicts compassion, whether forgiveness requires reopening what was closed. This is the tension point of this experience. Forgiveness and access are not the same. Forgiveness is internal. Access is relational. You did not step away because you stopped caring. You stepped away because caring without boundaries was costing you your stability. We are here with you at this moment where protection, awareness, and sovereignty converge. You are not being asked to harden. You are being asked to remain whole. And this understanding is the foundation for everything that follows. After you step back, a narrative may have formed around you. That you became distant, that you changed, that you hardened. This interpretation is common, but it is incomplete. Distance is often mistaken for indifference when, in truth, it is discernment. There are moments in life when remaining emotionally available no longer serves connection, growth, or truth. It serves imbalance. At that point, continuing to explain, justify, or absorb becomes a form of self-abandonment. You did not withdraw because you lacked empathy. You withdrew because empathy without boundaries was causing harm. We want you to understand something clearly. Self-protection is not rejection. It is a recognition of limits. Many people remain in damaging dynamics far longer than necessary because they confuse endurance with virtue. They believe that staying proves goodness, that tolerating pain proves depth. This belief is deeply ingrained, but it is not aligned with emotional intelligence. Protection does not mean you stopped caring. It means you stopped sacrificing yourself to maintain a connection that no longer respected your well-being. From our perspective, the moment you stepped back was not a loss of warmth. It was a restoration of balance. You chose to listen to signals that had been ignored for too long. Signals from your emotional body, from your nervous system, from your energetic field. These signals were not asking for confrontation. They were asking for space. Distance created that space. And within that space, something important happened. You began to stabilize. Your emotions slowed. Your thoughts became clearer. Your energy stopped leaking toward what could not receive it responsibly. This stabilization is often invisible to others, but it is profound. Those who benefited unconsciously from your availability may interpret your withdrawal as punishment. But this interpretation arises from loss of access, not from understanding. It is not your responsibility to correct that perception. Self-protection does not require explanation to those who ignored your limits when they were clearly expressed. What matters is that you recognized when remaining open would continue to cause damage. This recognition is not weakness. It is maturity. Many confuse kindness with permeability. They believe that being good requires remaining open regardless of cost. This is untrue. True kindness includes discernment. It includes knowing when presence nurtures and when it drains. By stepping back, you did not become cold. You became coherent. You allowed your emotional field to reorganize without constant disruption. You allowed your energy to return to a state of equilibrium. This is why distance was necessary before forgiveness could even be considered. Forgiveness that arises while the wound is still open is not liberation. It is suppression. Only after stabilization can forgiveness become a conscious act rather than a survival strategy. This is why your withdrawal was not the end of compassion. It was the preparation for a higher form of it. We want you to release any guilt associated with protecting yourself. Protection was not a failure of love. It was an act of self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation upon which true forgiveness can later emerge, without reopening what must remain closed. It is often only after access has been closed that awareness, not while you were present, not while your attention was available, not while your energy was quietly stabilizing the dynamic, but after the connection was interrupted. From our perspective, this sequence is natural. As long as access remains open, imbalance can continue without being questioned. Patterns repeat because nothing forces reflection. Your presence absorbs emotional tension that was never processed at its source. When you step back, that buffer disappears. And suddenly, what was avoided returns to the one who created it. This is the moment when many finally realize what was lost. Not because love suddenly deepened, not because awareness matured overnight, but because the emotional field changed. They feel the absence of your regulation. They feel the silence where your responsiveness once existed. They feel the instability that was previously neutralized by your presence. This discomfort is often confused with remorse. But what arises first is not regret. It is loss of access, loss of influence, loss of emotional availability, loss of a stabilizing field they unconsciously relied on. This realization does not automatically mean readiness. It means exposure, and exposure creates urgency. That urgency often shows up as a request for forgiveness. Quick, emotionally charged, sometimes desperate, not because the pattern has been understood, but because the comfort of access is gone. This is where many people feel pulled back. Old empathy awakens. Old habits of emotional caretaking resurface. The impulse to soothe, explain, or restore balance at personal cost becomes active again. We speak to you clearly here. Awareness on their side does not require immediate movement on yours. Their discomfort does not define your responsibility. At this point, it is important that you write something, not as a message to the other person, not as an explanation, but as a way to stabilize your own emotional field. Writing here is not symbolic. It is functional. When you write, you interrupt the emotional pull. You prevent unconscious re-entry. You remind your nervous system that protection is still in place. This is why this step matters. So write the following sentence in the comments, calmly and without explanation. I respect my protection and I do not rush to reopen what was closed for my well-being. This sentence anchors clarity. It reinforces boundaries. It helps seal what was already closed. Those who do this notice the same effect. The pull weakens. The pressure softens. Clarity returns. This is not coincidence. Your emotional field responds to conscious declaration. Realization, on the other side, does not require action from you. It only confirms what your withdrawal already revealed, that access mattered. And now, clarity must come before forgiveness can be expressed. When forgiveness enters the picture, confusion often follows. Many people were taught, directly or indirectly, that forgiveness must be accompanied by return, that to forgive is to reopen, that compassion requires access. This belief is deeply rooted, but it is not accurate. Forgiveness and return are separate movements. One is internal, the other is relational. From our perspective, confusing these two is what causes cycles to repeat. Return reintroduces exposure. Forgiveness releases attachment. They do not serve the same function. When you withdrew, you did so to restore balance. Your emotional field stabilized because the source of disruption was no longer active within it. Returning to the same dynamic, even with good intentions, reintroduces the same conditions that required protection in the first place. This is not pessimism. It is coherence. A pattern does not dissolve simply because it is acknowledged. It dissolves only when the conditions that sustained it are no longer present. Forgiveness does not change those conditions. Distance does. This is why return is not the natural continuation of healing. Healing restores you. Return tests you, and testing stability prematurely often recreates the very imbalance you work to resolve. From our perspective, many return not because they are ready, but because they feel pressured. Pressured by guilt, by empathy, by the discomfort of seeing another struggle with loss. But absorbing discomfort that is not yours to carry is not compassion. It is self-erasure. Compassion does not require self-exposure. You can understand someone's regret without placing yourself back into a dynamic that cost you your equilibrium. This distinction is essential. Forgiveness closes an internal loop. Return reopens an external one. One brings peace. The other brings risk. We want you to notice something subtle. When return is suggested as the right thing, it is often framed as maturity. But true maturity recognizes limits. It recognizes that not every connection can be resumed safely, that not every realization leads to repair, that some awareness arrives too late to change outcomes. This does not make forgiveness invalid. It makes boundaries necessary. There is also an energetic truth here. When access is restored too soon, the emotional field has not yet reorganized fully. Old roles reassert themselves. Old expectations return. Old imbalances quietly resume. The body senses this before the mind does. This is why people often feel drained, tense, or unsettled shortly after reopening contact. Even when the interaction appears calm, the field remembers. Returning does not erase history. It reactivates it. From our perspective, return is not required for closure. Closure is internal. Distance allows integration to complete without interference. This does not mean distance must be hostile. It means it must be clear. Clarity protects both sides from repeating what can no longer be sustained. Some connections end not because love was absent, but because alignment was. And alignment cannot be forced by forgiveness. Forgiveness frees you from carrying the bond. It does not obligate you to maintain it. This is a critical distinction in this phase of your process. Return would shift the focus away from your stabilization and back toward managing another's emotional state. And that is precisely what you stepped away from. From our perspective, choosing not to return is not rejection. It is completion. It signals that the lesson has integrated, that the boundary has held, that the cycle has reached its natural conclusion. You are not required to re-enter what you already transcended. Distance, when chosen consciously, honors the work you have done, and it preserves the clarity that made forgiveness possible in the first place. Forgiveness is often misunderstood because it is taught as a social action rather than an internal one. Many believe forgiveness exists to repair relationships, to restore harmony, to bring people back together. From our perspective, this interpretation creates confusion and unnecessary pressure. Forgiveness does not exist to rebuild what harmed you. It exists to release what you no longer need to carry. When forgiveness is approached as reconnection, it places the focus outside of you. It ties your healing to another person's behavior, awareness, or readiness. This is not liberation. It is dependency. True forgiveness begins only after stability has been restored, not while the wound is open, not while exposure continues, but after the emotional field has been protected and allowed to settle. This is why distance came first. Distance removed interference. It stopped the constant activation of the same emotional patterns. It gave your system the space required to reorganize. Only then can forgiveness arise as a conscious choice rather than a survival response. From our perspective, forgiveness is not an emotional reaction. It is an energetic decision. It is the moment you decide to stop carrying a bond that no longer serves your coherence. That bond may have been formed through love, obligation, habit, or trauma. Regardless of its origin, once it becomes draining, it must be released internally. Forgiveness accomplishes this release. It dissolves residual attachment. It closes loops that remain open after physical distance has been established. It prevents the past from continuing to influence the present. Importantly, forgiveness does not require the other person to understand anything. It does not depend on apology, remorse, or change. It is not a transaction. When forgiveness is done correctly, it does not soften boundaries. It strengthens them. The emotional charge weakens. The pull diminishes. The need to explain or justify fades. What remains is neutrality. Neutrality is often mistaken for coldness. In reality, it is balance. This balance is what allows forgiveness to elevate your energetic state. As long as resentment remains active, part of your energy is still engaged with the past. It continues to feed a dynamic that has already ended externally. Forgiveness interrupts this feed. It returns energy to the present moment. It restores sovereignty over your emotional field. This is why forgiveness is an act of power, not submission. You are not excusing what happened. You are releasing its hold on you. This distinction matters deeply. Forgiveness does not rewrite history. It removes history's authority over your inner state. From our perspective, when forgiveness is integrated correctly, the connection does not revive. Completes. The memory remains, but without charge. The lesson remains, but without pain. This is closure. Closure is not something another person gives you. It is something you establish internally. And once established, it does not require maintenance. There is also an important energetic consequence here. When forgiveness is internal and complete, access remains closed naturally. There is no tension around distance, no need to defend boundaries. They hold on their own. This is how forgiveness elevates rather than weakens you. It lifts you out of reaction and into clarity, out of emotional labor and into presence, out of past-oriented engagement and into current alignment. From our perspective, this is the true purpose of forgiveness. Not to restore connection, but to restore you. When forgiveness is approached as an internal release, the emotional field begins to change. The tension that once required constant attention starts to ease. The vigilance that kept you alert begins to soften. Energy that was tied to the past slowly returns to the present. This is where support matters. We are the Pleiadians, and we remain present with you during this phase. Not as distant observers, but as a stabilizing presence as your emotional field reorganizes. When a bond is released internally, the system recalibrates. What once felt familiar may briefly feel empty or unfamiliar. This does not mean something is missing. It means integration is taking place. Many people misinterpret this calm as vulnerability. In truth, it is stability returning. Protection does not end when forgiveness begins. Changes form. Before, protection required distance. Now, protection is maintained through clarity. Clarity keeps access closed without effort. It prevents emotional pullback without resistance. This is why anchoring your state consciously is important at this stage. Writing helps stabilize intention. It signals to your nervous system that release is complete and protection remains active. So write the following sentence in the comments, calmly and without explanation. I release this connection while remaining protected and emotionally stable. This is not about the other person. It is about reinforcing coherence within yourself. Those who do this often notice a subtle shift. The urge to revisit the past weakens. Mental loops quiet. The emotional field settles. This is not coincidence. Your system responds to clear declaration. We remain present as this stabilization completes. Not to control your process, but to ensure that forgiveness does not reopen exposure. You are not unprotected because you forgave. You are more stable because you did so consciously. Forgiveness ends the bond. Protection preserves your coherence. And when both are integrated, sovereignty becomes natural rather than forced. When someone seeks forgiveness after a period of distance, it often appears as growth, as awareness, as regret finally expressed. From our perspective, the timing matters more than the words. Many do not seek forgiveness because they have fully understood what occurred. They seek it because the field has changed. When access was available, there was no urgency. Your presence absorbed tension. Your availability regulated imbalance. Once that regulation ended, discomfort surfaced. This discomfort is not necessarily conscience awakening. It is often the absence of stabilization. They feel the weight they did not carry before. They experience emotional instability that was previously managed externally. This does not make them manipulative. It makes them exposed. Exposure creates discomfort. Discomfort seeks relief. Forgiveness becomes the perceived path back to relief. From this position, the request for forgiveness is less about accountability and more about restoration of equilibrium for them. This is why such requests often arrive suddenly. They are driven by urgency rather than reflection. Understanding this prevents confusion on your side. You may feel tempted to respond because the request sounds sincere. It may carry emotion, vulnerability, or remorse. But sincerity does not automatically mean readiness. Readiness is demonstrated through sustained change, not emotional intensity. From our perspective, many confuse emotional release with transformation. They are not the same. Release is momentary. Transformation is structural. Seeking forgiveness can be part of transformation, but it is not proof of it. This is why you are not required to respond quickly. Time reveals whether awareness is integrated or simply reactive. There is also an energetic component to this timing. When the bond was active, your field compensated for imbalance. Once the bond closed, their field had to adjust. This adjustment can feel destabilizing, and forgiveness is sometimes sought as a way to restore what was lost rather than to honor what was learned. Recognizing this allows you to remain neutral. Neutrality is not coldness. It is clarity without attachment. You can acknowledge their feeling without resuming the role you exited. You can allow their process without inserting yourself back into it. This preserves your sovereignty. Forgiveness, when it comes from you, must arise from clarity, not pressure. If it is offered to relieve their discomfort, it binds you again. If it is offered from stability, it releases you. This distinction is subtle but essential. From our perspective, when forgiveness is sought immediately after loss of access, it often signals that the lesson is still unfolding. And unfolding lessons do not require immediate response. They require space. Space allows awareness to settle. It allows responsibility to develop without external support. This is why distance remains important even as forgiveness becomes possible. Distance protects your integration, and it allows theirs to be authentic rather than dependent. There is a moment in this process where forgiveness becomes possible without creating risk. This moment does not arrive through pressure. It does not arrive through obligation. It arrives through stability. Forgiveness that emerges from instability is reactive. It is driven by discomfort, guilt, or the desire to end tension. Forgiveness that emerges from clarity is different. It is sovereign. From our perspective, this distinction defines whether forgiveness liberates or entangles. When you forgive from a stable place, you are no longer seeking relief. You are no longer trying to fix anything. You are no longer negotiating peace. Peace already exists. This is why forgiveness at this stage feels quiet rather than emotional. It does not surge, it settles. Forgiveness here is not a response to the other person. It is a completion within yourself. This is also why it does not require communication. No explanation is needed. No conversation is required. No acknowledgement must be received. Forgiveness occurs internally, and because it is internal, it does not reopen access. Many people fear forgiveness because they associate it with softness. They worry that forgiving will weaken their boundaries or invite return. This fear comes from confusing forgiveness with reconciliation. They are not the same. Reconciliation is relational. Forgiveness is internal. Reconciliation requires mutual readiness. Forgiveness requires only clarity. When forgiveness is misunderstood, boundaries must be defended actively. When forgiveness is integrated correctly, boundaries hold effortlessly. This is sovereignty. Sovereignty does not argue. It does not convince. It does not explain itself. It simply remains intact. From our perspective, this is the point where emotional maturity becomes visible. You can feel compassion without reopening exposure. You can understand without re-entering. You can acknowledge pain without sacrificing stability. This is not emotional distance. It is emotional proportion. Proportion restores balance between heart and discernment. When forgiveness is incomplete, compassion leaks. When forgiveness is complete, compassion stabilizes. This is why forgiveness without reopening does not harden the heart. Hardness comes from unresolved pain. Clarity comes from integration. When integration is present, warmth remains, but it is no longer self-sacrificial. From this place, something important shifts. Distance no longer feels like something you are maintaining. Feels natural. You are no longer holding yourself back. You are simply no longer oriented toward what caused harm. This is how sovereignty feels. Quiet, undramatic, unforced. The emotional charge dissolves. The need to monitor disappears. The urge to explain fades. What remains is neutrality. Neutrality is often misunderstood because it lacks intensity. But neutrality is not absence of feeling. It is absence of inner conflict. From our perspective, neutrality is one of the highest states of emotional integration. It allows you to remain open to life while remaining closed to what is no longer aligned. This is the balance that many struggle to find. They believe they must choose between openness and protection, between heart and boundary. This is a false choice. Forgiveness without reopening resolves this conflict. It allows the heart to stay open without reopening the wound. It allows boundaries to remain without bitterness. This is not indifference. It is resolution. From this state, forgiveness no longer feels like an action. It feels like a consequence of understanding. Understanding dissolves attachment. Attachment dissolves pain. And when pain dissolves, forgiveness no longer requires effort. From our perspective, this is the turning point of the entire process. Before this moment, distance required awareness. After this moment, distance requires no energy at all. It simply exists. This is the difference between protection and sovereignty. Protection guards against harm. Sovereignty exists beyond the need to guard. When sovereignty is established, forgiveness is no longer a risk. It is a release, and release, when fully integrated, does not reopen anything. It closes the cycle completely. This is why forgiveness at this level feels final. Not dramatic, not emotional, but irreversible. And from this place, you are no longer defined by what you stepped away from, but by the clarity you now carry forward. After forgiveness has been integrated internally, there is one more step that completes the process: closure. Closure is not confrontation. It is not explanation. It is not resolution with another person. Closure is energetic. Even when distance is maintained and forgiveness is present, a subtle bond can remain active if it is not consciously closed. This bond is not emotional attachment. It is residual orientation. Part of your attention may still turn toward what happened. Part of your energy may still scan for reaction. This keeps the circuit partially open. From our perspective, closure is the moment when this scanning stops. Not through effort, but through decision. Closing an energetic bond does not erase memory. It removes influence. The past remains as information, not as a force. This is why closure must be conscious. If it is left to time alone, the bond weakens slowly but may never fully dissolve. Conscious closure accelerates integration. It signals to your system that the process is complete. At this stage, it is important that you anchor this completion clearly. Not for the other person, not for the situation, but for your own emotional and energetic field. Writing is an effective way to do this. When you write, you move intention out of thought and into form. This stabilizes it within the nervous system. It prevents the mind from reopening questions that no longer need answers. So write the following sentence in the comments, calmly and without explanation. I forgive, I release, and I close this energetic bond. This sentence performs 3 functions at once. Forgiveness releases emotional charge. Release disengages attention. Closure ends orientation. Together, they seal the process. People who complete this step often notice a clear shift afterward. The mind stops revisiting the situation. The body relaxes more deeply. The sense of unfinished business dissolves. This is not imagination. Your emotional field responds to completion. From our perspective, many people struggle not because they lack forgiveness, but because they never closed the bond energetically. They remain open without realizing it. Closure restores sovereignty. It allows your energy to circulate fully in the present, prevents the past from drawing focus. It frees capacity for new alignment. We remain present as this closure takes place, not to interfere, not to observe, but to ensure that the process completes cleanly and without residue. Once the bond is closed, there is no need to monitor it, no need to protect against it, no need to reference it. It no longer exists in your field. This is what completion feels like: quiet, clear, undramatic. And from this place, your energy is no longer defined by what you stepped away from, but by what you are now free to move toward. After the energetic bond is consciously closed, change does not arrive dramatically. It arrives quietly. Many expect a surge of relief, a sudden feeling of victory, or an emotional release. What usually comes instead is something more subtle and more stable. Space. Not emptiness. Space. The emotional field no longer orients itself toward what ended. There is no scanning, no internal checking, no background tension. This creates room for perception to widen. You may notice that your thoughts slow down, that decisions feel simpler, that your body responds with less tension to situations that once triggered vigilance. This is not because you became indifferent. It is because your system no longer needs to defend itself. When an energetic bond remains open, part of your awareness is always partially engaged elsewhere. Even in the absence of pain, this divided attention creates fatigue. Closure restores unity. Your attention returns fully to the present. Energy that was bound to the past becomes available for life now. This availability changes behavior naturally. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop anticipating reactions. You stop managing emotional outcomes. This is not detachment. It is freedom from obligation. From our perspective, this is one of the clearest indicators that closure has integrated. Life begins to feel lighter not because problems disappear, but because fewer of them are internalized. You respond rather than react. You choose rather than accommodate. Another change becomes visible over time. Your tolerance for misalignment decreases, not out of rigidity but out of clarity. Situations that once felt confusing now feel obvious. Dynamics that once required justification now resolve themselves through absence of engagement. This is not judgment. It is discernment. Discernment does not need explanation. It simply acts. From our perspective, this is where many notice a shift in relationships. Some connections naturally deepen. Others quietly fall away. This is not loss. It is reorganization. When your field becomes coherent, it attracts coherence. When it becomes unavailable to imbalance, imbalance looks elsewhere. This is not something you force. It happens naturally when orientation changes. You may also notice a change in how you relate to forgiveness itself. It no longer feels like something you must actively maintain. It remains present without effort. This is because forgiveness has completed its function. There is nothing left to release, nothing left to resolve. Forgiveness becomes part of the past, not something you revisit. From our perspective, this is what true completion looks like. Quiet alignment replaces emotional work. Presence replaces processing. Life continues, but with less internal resistance. This is not a new identity. It is the return of a natural state. You were never meant to carry unresolved bonds indefinitely. You were meant to learn, integrate, and move forward. Closure allows this movement to happen without dragging the past behind you. And from this place, something important becomes clear. You did not lose anything by closing the bond. You regained access to yourself. This is the real shift, not something added, something returned. And it prepares you for the final integration, where forgiveness, protection, and sovereignty coexist without effort. After closure integrates, something subtle but decisive shifts within you. You are no longer orienting yourself around what happened. You are orienting yourself around what is real now. This is not indifference. It is presence without distortion. When an energetic bond dissolves completely, perception clears. You begin to see situations as they are, not as echoes of the past. Old filters lose relevance. This is the emergence of a new internal reference point. Before, your awareness was partially shaped by what needed protection. Now, it is shaped by coherence. This changes how you move through the world. You listen differently. You respond more slowly. You no longer feel compelled to fill silence, justify decisions, or manage emotional outcomes. This is not withdrawal. It is groundedness. From our perspective, this groundedness marks a rise in consciousness that is rarely dramatic but always noticeable to the one experiencing it. You feel less pulled, less reactive, less invested in dynamics that once demanded attention. What once felt important now feels optional. This does not mean you lost depth. It means depth is no longer entangled with struggle. Another change becomes visible in how you relate to choice. You choose based on alignment rather than fear of consequence. You say yes without tension. You say no without guilt. This is a sign that the emotional field has stabilized at a higher level. Protection is no longer active vigilance. It is simply how your field is structured. From this place, forgiveness does not need to be revisited. Boundaries do not need reinforcement. Distance does not need explanation. Everything holds naturally. This is what sovereignty feels like when it is fully integrated. Not strong, not rigid, but quiet and clear. From our perspective, this is also where your energetic signature changes. You no longer emit signals of availability to imbalance. You no longer attract situations that require self-sacrifice to maintain peace. Instead, coherence begins to reflect coherence. You may notice that interactions simplify, that misunderstandings decrease, that relationships either stabilize or dissolve without conflict. This is not because you became less caring. It is because your care is no longer disorganized. Care now flows where it is reciprocated. It withdraws where it is not. This is intelligent compassion. At this stage, the past no longer calls you back. It no longer seeks resolution. It has already completed its function. What remains is awareness. Awareness that you can forgive without reopening, that you can love without exposure, that you can remain open to life without sacrificing stability. This awareness does not need to be defended. It does not need to be proven. It simply becomes the way you live. From our perspective, this is the integration point that prepares you for closure without effort. The final step is not about doing more. It is about acknowledging what is already complete. And this is where we move next. There is nothing left to resolve. This is important to understand. When forgiveness has been integrated, when the energetic bond has been closed, and when sovereignty has stabilized, there is no remaining task. No unfinished lesson. No loose end. What remains is presence. Many people feel the need to do something at the end of a process, to say something, to make a final gesture. But true completion does not require action. It requires recognition. You are not holding anything back. You are not avoiding anything. You are no longer carrying what was not yours to carry. From our perspective, this is the moment where the field becomes fully quiet. Not empty, not closed, quiet. Quiet means nothing is pulling you backward. Nothing is demanding explanation. Nothing is waiting to be resolved. This is not indifference. It is integration. Forgiveness has done its work. Protection has done its work. Distance no longer requires awareness. Everything holds on its own. We want you to notice something subtle. At this stage, there is no emotional charge when you think of what happened. No urgency to explain. No need to clarify your position. This is the clearest sign that the process is complete. You are no longer defined by what you stepped away from. You are defined by the clarity you now carry forward. We are the Pleiadians, and we remain present with you here, not to guide you further, but to acknowledge that the field is stable. When a field stabilizes, guidance becomes unnecessary. This is not abandonment. It is respect. Respect for your integration. Respect for your sovereignty. You are not required to monitor the past. You are not required to protect against it. It no longer exists in your field. Now, there is one final step, not to change anything, but to seal what is already complete. This step is not symbolic. It is regulatory. Writing anchors finality. So write the following sentence in the comments, calmly and without explanation. I forgive, I release, and I remain sovereign. This sentence does not reopen anything. It does not invite response. It does not soften boundaries. Confirms completion. Those who write it often notice the same effect. A deeper calm, a quieter mind, a sense of internal alignment that does not fluctuate. This is the field recognizing finality. From our perspective, this is where true freedom appears, not as excitement but as steadiness. You no longer need to define yourself through what you endured. You no longer need to orient yourself around what you avoided. You are simply present, and presence, when it is stable, requires no defense. We remain with you in this stillness, not as guides, not as protectors, but as witnesses to your sovereignty. The cycle is complete. Nothing needs to return. Nothing needs to be explained. And nothing needs to be carried forward.